thank you for that. That was a big song in my house when I was growing up. Big song. I love those albums. I love those albums. So last night, I watched a play. And it had a fairly profound effect on me. Now, I will tell you, I had intended to watch this later on, because the way that it would worked out is this play was actually broadcast on YouTube. Yeah. And I thought, well, I'm going to let them do the broadcast and then I'm going to watch it later, and then something compelled me to watch it. Spirit, right? Because there's something that was important. Ooh, I love that. There's something that was important to be heard in that broadcast for me. The play that I watched was called 8, and it's a play written by Dustin Lance Black, who won the Oscar for his screenplay for Milk a few years ago. The play is about, well, it's actually taken from the court transcripts for the Proposition 8 trial in California. I don't know how many of you are familiar with that trial. Basically, I'll very briefly go through it. Proposition 8 was a ballot initiative that created a constitutional amendment to the California Constitution that said that marriage is only between a man and a woman. Now, I know that I've said this before, I am a gay man, so if that shocks any of you, then,
What?
I heard somebody say get over it, so.
The shirt gave it away.
The shirt gave it away.
Could be the accent too, just saying.
So this play is about a subject that's pretty close and near and dear to my heart. Now, obviously in Canada, where gay marriage is legal and is not referred to as gay marriage, it's simply called marriage. Which, come on, let's face it, that makes so much sense to me. This may not seem like that big of a deal, but right now I'll tell you it's a really big deal, and still being a citizen of the States, and technically, I guess, I'm not a resident of California, even though I still have to do my voter registration in California anyway. It's a big deal for me. It's a big deal for me because it really comes down to what is fair in this world, and how do you view your neighbor in this world. So this play, an all-star cast, and it was pretty spectacular. First of all, there are I was going to say, the two lawyers that were on the side of opposing Proposition 8, basically going in and saying this proposition is unconstitutional if you look at the federal Constitution, were Ted Olson and David Boies. Now, these two particular lawyers came together to fight for marriage equality. And these two lawyers, in 2000, actually squared off against each other in Gore versus Bush, which was the Supreme Court trial that went when, all of that stuff was happening in Florida. Yeah. So these two men, former opponents, were now coming together to say this is wrong. This amendment to the California Constitution is absolutely unconstitutional. Now, these two men in the play, Ted Olson was played by Martin Sheen, whom I love. And by the way, I met him just once. I worked on the West Wing once, and he is one of the loveliest men you could ever meet. And I always love going onto a set and meeting people that are major stars and knowing that they're wonderful people, because you do find the opposite of that sometimes too. But he's a lovely man. David Boies was played by George Clooney.
Got some heartburn there?
Oh yeah. Judge Vaughn Walker was played by Brad Pitt. The producers certainly know how to appeal to the gay crowd, I mean, the gay male crowd, and to the straight women. And it wasn't just the men who had something nice to look at. The women, well, the lesbians had something nice to look at, and the men, the straight men had something nice to look at. Jamie Lee Curtis was in it, Christine Lahti, Jane Lynch.
It was amazing.
It was really amazing. It was really amazing, and I'll tell you, the way that the play started off was very, very. I loved the way that he approached this, Dustin Lance Black. He started off the play with the two sons of the lesbian couple coming out and talking about, basically, we don't get why this is even an issue. We don't understand it. They're saying that, I mean, one of the major cases that Prop 8 was making, and it was in all the television advertising, was that this was the worst thing that could happen to families. It was destroying the idea that families could have, the idea of marriage is for procreation. So they're basically saying gay people can't have kids. So starting the play with the two sons of a lesbian couple, very, very profound. Very profound. It was also important to me because I actually attended the legal marriage of my mentor, Reverend James Mellon, to his husband, Kevin Bailey, back when, during that 18-month period when it was, or I guess it was only 9 months, I don't remember. It was a short amount of time when gay marriage was legal in California. I sang at his wedding, and it was really, really stunning. It was actually on the 20th anniversary of their ceremony that they had held on Long Island, to the day. To the day. So it was very, very exciting for me to be able to participate in that, and also look at that and say, you know what? If people just got that it's all about love. It's all about love. Whom do you love? Who do you love? Whom do you love? It actually is properly whom, because if you answered the question, you would say, I love him. I had a whole thing in my brain about this, so I'm a little bit of a grammar Nazi. Whom do you love is actually correct. So the idea that there is no delineation, that you are free to love whomever you like, is really important to me. And not just because I'm gay, because I'm a human being. Because I'm a loving, caring person in this world. It doesn't matter to me who you choose to spend your life with. So I don't claim to know, well, actually I would love for somebody to tell me what the politics were which led up to it becoming legal in this country. Someday, not now. So, because I actually am interested in knowing how it all happened here. Because, we citizens of the States, we think that we're the center of the universe. We don't really listen to what's going on in the rest of the world all that much, I admit. So it's, I'm happy to be educated. So the play was based on court transcripts, mostly. And one of the things that happened when the trial was happening is there was this great debate and battle over whether or not to video broadcast the trial. And the people against Prop 8, David Boies and Ted Olson, basically said, we want the trial to be televised. We want people to see. It was the proponents of Proposition 8, those people who are saying gay people can't get married, that said, no, we don't want this televised. And it's very interesting now that it's come out and you can get the transcripts, and transcripts of the court proceedings are in the public record, so anybody can go and read them. And I think that the reason that the proponents of Prop 8 didn't want it televised is because they did not have their act together. Because ultimately, one of the things that happened in the play is the judge asked point blank, how does upholding Prop 8 and not allowing gay people to marry affect marriage? How does it affect your marriage? How does it affect heterosexual marriage. And the lawyer, all he could come up with was, I don't know. This was the whole basis of their argument, that this somehow, this idea of gay marriage was going to be the beginning of the end of society. But he could not prove it. So ultimately, what happened, of course, is that the ruling was that Prop 8 is unconstitutional and is still going through the court process, and I do believe it will end up in the Supreme Court. But one of the great things about it not being video broadcast is that I think it has brought more attention to the issue. Because if it had been broadcast, it would have been put on C-SPAN, and probably very few people would have watched. The fact that in a theater last night, there probably seated at least several hundred, probably 1,000 people. You got some of the biggest names in the industry to come together in support of an idea. That made it that much more profound for me. So today, one of the things I want to ask you is, what do you stand for? What do you stand for? And at the same time, what do you stand against? Do you stand against anything? Whose side are you on? In any given circumstance, whose side are you on? And also, what are the sides? Now, I ask these questions because one of the things that I came to as I was watching this last night is I had to step into the shoes and really understand the opposition. And I had to really keep myself in check to say, hey, am I now stepping into judging who these people are because they have a specific belief? It's really important to keep yourself in check and know when you're stepping into judgment. This is what I had to do last night, and what I came to was, you know what? I uphold the idea that these people are absolutely entitled to their belief. I have no problem with that. The issue that I have is when they're thrusting their beliefs and affecting my life, and not respecting the fact that I have my own belief. Now, at the same time, am I now thrusting my belief on them and saying they have to do what I am now saying I don't want them to do to me?
Huh?
Ultimately, it comes down to a question of, what do you stand for in this world? If somebody opposes you, can you understand it from their perspective? If the answer is no, there's work to do. David Boies, one of the lawyers who was at the trial, or at the trial, of course he was at the trial, at the play last night, they invited him up on the stage at the end of the play, and he said this thing that really got me. He said, we put Fear and Prejudice on trial, and as you can see, Fear and Prejudice lost. And for me, that's what that was the whole point. Fear and prejudice have no place in this world. And when you can step away from fear and prejudice in anything, you can live a more extraordinary life. And so I take a look at myself and I say, am I living in fear and prejudice around the proponents of Prop 8? Am I allowing my fear of another idea to take over and have effect? Maybe a little bit. I have to admit it. But the whole play, the whole way this worked out, this is an opportunity to learn about the creative process. So today, I have invited you to ask questions, and I imagine some of these questions are going to be questions, about Hitler, because that seems to always come up in Q&A. Or maybe the cancer question, or maybe the question about why things happen to children. So I'm going to answer those all right now. The honest answer is I cannot answer in any way that is going to make those things okay. What Hitler did is not okay. For me, cancer is not okay. And certainly, things happening to children is not okay. There's nothing I can say that will make it any better. But what I have to do is I have to stand back in my own place. I have to trust that there is a reason for everything as it plays out. So I said that this play was an opportunity to learn about the creative process. Ultimately, if something happens, if Hitler happens, if cancer happens, if something happens to a child, if Prop 8 gets passed, the question is, how are you going to move forward in a creative, constructive way to deal with it? One of the things I always say is when we go into spiritual mind treatment, which is our version of prayer within this philosophy, it is affirmative prayer, we are never praying to change the circumstance, ever. We're praying to change our relationship to the circumstance. We're only ever praying to change our own mind. And so when we change the relationship to our circumstance, when we can look at Hitler, when we can look at cancer, when we can look at an abused child, when we can look at Prop 8, when we can look at all of the things that we perceive as ills of the world, when we can look at those and we can see God within them, then we're changing our relationship to the circumstances of our world. And you know what's really great? You know what happens when you change your relationship to the circumstances of the world? You have now created a new cause within the law of cause and effect, and that must demonstrate. And so although we are not purposefully trying to change a circumstance, the inevitable outcome of changing our relationship to the circumstance is the circumstance changes. Now, you may ask, well, we can't change what Hitler did. No, it's done. But really listen to that. It's done. It's in the past. You cannot change the past. But what you can do is you can change this moment and move forward. So we have an opportunity to learn from all of these things. So my question to you today is, how are you going to react? What action do you take when bad things happen? Are you reactionary? In that reaction, is it an eye for an eye? Or are you willing to turn the other cheek? We'll do the Bible lesson about that at another talk.
Closer to Easter.
Closer to Easter. So, what I'm here today to tell you is that you are a person of power. You have power. You are a person of power, and that is because that power is the very essence, the core of who you are. That power is the power of God. Okay, I'm saying it again. You ready? You are God. I'm going to say it every week until you get comfortable hearing it. You are God. You are. Now, we have to understand that the same power that made you made Hitler. That's not easy to hear, eh?
It's official! We don't need this,
How you like that,
That will take long.
So I have to tell you,
eh? Less than 2 months.
so I do a treatment downstairs with participants in the service, before they come up, well, between the meditation and the service. And I said something along the lines of, we're going to have joy and laughter and fun. So I'm finally glad we got to the laughter, because I'm talking a little bit about Hitler today.
Fear and prejudice did not win.
No, fear and prejudice did not win.
It never does.
So the question is, how are you going to use the power? How are you going to use the power? Hitler used it in a specific way. He used it in a way that was destructive. So my question is, what choice will you make? I'm not here to admonish you. I'm here to help you observe your life. Dustin Lance Black, the writer of the play 8, used the power in a creative way. He's changing his world by turning the other cheek and holding a mirror up and saying, this does not stand, this is not right. So today, what I encourage you to do, oh, and here's the Tracy, this is so. Today I encourage you to March 4th. On March 4th. Yeah, I get it. No, but truly, let's understand this. Today I encourage you to March 4th to use the power in creative ways and in constructive ways. And if you find yourself being destructive in your own life, turn it around. Destructive thoughts create destructive habits. Destructive habits create a destructive experience. Constructive thoughts create constructive habits, which create a constructive experience. You are a choice. You get to decide, because you are power. You have that power. So I say today, March 4th for equality, March 4th for love, March 4th for joy, March 4th for peace, March 4th for a better world. Because if you want a better world, it is your responsibility to live it. So, I'm happy to entertain some questions. Of course, I should have gathered the questions prior to this moment. I should have done it right at the top. But if you have the questions, they're going to pass the basket around, and I will simply take the question out and read it. I'll start with you. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. So this came up in class the other night. We talked, the question is, please explain the concept of one mind.
How much time do we have?
Well, let's just remember, it took me 6 years of ministerial school to embody this concept and this idea. No, here's the concept of one mind. Within this philosophy, we teach there's only one thing going on. There's one power, there's one presence, there is one thing going on. And so within that, we have this idea that we call mind. And within mind is the creative force of the universe. That is the creative power itself. There's only one. There is one mind. Now, you need to separate yourself from the idea that your mind is your brain. Your mind is not your brain. The one mind is not a brain. The one mind is the collective thoughts, beliefs, experiences, feelings, emotions of everything that has ever happened or ever will happen. So when we talk about the one mind, what we're talking about is God. So when we talk about God, we're talking about this energy. This energy is a creative power in the universe. Now, we each have our own concept that we have a mind, right? And I think this is where the confusion happens. If you can wrap your thoughts around the idea that your mind and my mind are simply a part of the one mind, and we are each expressing individually from that place, then I can look at you and say we are perfectly equal because we are the same thing. Does that make sense? So the minute we separate ourselves from the one mind, we believe that there's something outside of us that can have power over us. And that's not the truth. We are totally in control, we have total choice, and there is nothing outside of us that has power over us because we are that power. So have I explained that sufficiently? This is one of the questions that comes up, and I would say, you know what, maybe we should have a little sit-down chat. Thank you. Thank you. Another one. Has everybody who wants to turn in a question been able to do so? What does it mean to be honorable? What does it mean to be honorable? So funny, have I used that term? I don't know that I've ever used that term, not that it's an issue. So what does it mean to be honorable? The way I would answer that question is, what does it mean to be true to yourself? What does it mean to be in integrity with yourself? Because when you are true to yourself, when you are in integrity with yourself, that is being honorable. Now what it means to be in integrity, integrity means to be whole. To come from an understanding that the wholeness of who you are can never be broken up. So to be honorable is to live from this place of wholeness and this place of perfect, creative, constructive flow. To me, that's being honorable. Because I'm honoring the creative power within me that is expressing through me. And everybody has this opportunity. To be dishonorable, sometimes it's easier to answer the opposite. To be dishonorable would mean to suppress that idea, to suppress the creative flow, and to suppress the creative power. So that's what it means for me, that's what it means to me, to be honorable. But I don't know who asked the question, but I'm going to assume that I've answered it sufficiently. If not, you can always come and chat with me during fellowship following service. Will there be classes on Sunday? Is that something that people would like? That's the question. You know what, maybe we should do a poll. We'll find out. If people are interested in doing classes on Sunday, then, you know, like I say, I am happy to teach anytime, because for me, the classes are really where you learn how to take this into the world in your own life. Could you offer a perspective on physical healing? A perspective on physical healing? This philosophy started because people were using their mind to create physical healings in the physical experience. We talked a lot about this in class on Wednesday, because it was Decide to Be Healthy?
Yeah.
Yeah. Physical healing is a byproduct of mental healing. So if you are facing some physical ailment, the first place to go to heal it is the mind. Now this is tough because we've been brought up with an erased consciousness that science and medicine are the only ways to handle physical ailments. Yes, that can be true if that's true for you. But I can tell you, having experienced other people's physical healings in the world, and watching other people who've gone through medical treatment who did not experience physical healings, it's because of what was going on in their mind first and foremost. The truth is, if you require a physical healing in your experience, you must start with the mind. Because that's where all change happens. When you change your mind, when you embody a new belief about your experience, that plays out in the physical world. Again, like I said before, you change the relationship to the circumstances. The physical is a circumstance. All things in the physical world are circumstances. They are all effects. So when I say effect, circumstance, it's all the same thing. When you change your relationship to the effects in your life, you create a new cause in the law of cause and effect. And so as this cause goes through and becomes effect, the physical changes. I'm sitting here thinking, do I really want to go down this next thing that I'm considering saying? Because this is heavy for people, and actually is probably better in class. I'm going to say it because I'm being led to say it. And I don't want you to take this the wrong way, because what I'm about to say, a lot of people have a very hard time hearing. And if you're in that place, I honor you, and again, I'm happy to discuss it with you during fellowship. We become so tied to our physical expression as God that we forget that we're infinite beings. And our individuality, our personality moves forward regardless of whether or not we're in this physical body. So there are occasions where the perfect physical healing is to transition to the next thing. And when I say that, I mean that you die. But the thing to know is that when that happens, you are fully intact. You are fully intact because Spirit, the I am that I am, the you are that you are, the one thing can never, ever be broken. So, I get it, that's a tough one. It's a tough one to hear. And so that's why I wanted to preface that and say, I'm happy to have further discussions about that, but maybe in a forum outside of being up here. Easter.
Is there a theme here, Stuart?
Yeah.
Okay, how can one change the belief of money and guilt of having money for being spiritual? Did I get that right? How can one change the belief of money and the guilt of money for being spiritual? Yeah, okay, well first of all, I don't have my wallet on me. Do you have any bills in there?
The queen.
Thank you. So anyway. Oh gosh.
It's only money.
So what I want to ask you first of all is,
Isn't it pretty?
it is beautiful. Your money is gorgeous. My friend Alex, when he was here, some of you may remember him, he was so excited because the $5 bill, I think, has hockey players on it. So what I want to ask you, this is one of the things I asked the first night in spiritual economics class. What is this?
Paper.
Energy.
Energy.
An idea.
A means of exchange. Conscience.
Money. $60.
So the answer is yes. But what I really get to ultimately is this is a decision. This is a decision.
An agreement.
It's an agreement. It is a decision. Money is God. Because again, remember I was talking about if you separate any part of God from, if you've decided that's something working in your life, you've now decided that there's something outside of you that can have power over you. Ooh, how many people feel that money has power over them?
Usually when they go.
There is no difference between you and this decision. This is simply an indication of infinite abundance. That's it. Now, if you've decided to have more, you will have more. But know that you can never have more than God. You can never outgive God. You can never take more from God than God has to give. And so, money, the guilt around money is generally due to an idea that money has power in and of itself, and it does not, because money is a decision. And so as we embody this idea more and more, as we understand the abundance of the universe more and more of this representation of the abundance of the universe can come into your experience. And I know this because this is the way I've lived my life. I will tell you, I had a tremendous fear around money for a very, I'll give you this back. I had a tremendous fear around money for a very long time. And let me tell you, it kept me down here. And the reason is because I had decided that money had power over me. The minute I gave that up, the minute I gave up the idea that money has power over me, and I understood it as a spiritual principle, and I understood it as a spiritual idea, something that is part of the ebb and flow, part of the greater circulation, part of the greater current, to which I get to, we call money currency. Because it has to flow. That's how I got over the fear, was coming to that understanding. And money, like I said, has to flow. So when you stop the flow by living in fear and holding on to money, you're not going to get more. Because you've now stopped the flow. Giving and receiving are two sides of the same coin. So, I trust I've answered that question sufficiently. How can I use the science of mind to respond to the major issues of our day? For example, environmental pollution. To that, I have to ask the question, I'm going to answer the question by asking a question. How do you respond to your own world? What are you doing in your own world? Because you're only responsible for your own mind and for your own expression. You're the only one in your world. So when something seems big outside of yourself, environmental pollution, it's all their fault. My question is, what are you doing in your own world to affect change? It goes to Gandhi. Be the change you wish to see in the world. A lot of people use just that part of it. I'm going to say what it actually is. You must be the change you wish to see in the world. So if you are deeply affected by environmental pollution or the things that are happening in your world, you do something about it. That's how to effectively use this science. Take action. Take action. Because this is not a science, this is not a philosophy about just sitting around and saying, God is good, God is all there is, that's it, no more, oh, I'm going to sit on a mountaintop. Which is nice for some people if that's what you like. But you must take action in your world. We always talk about, there's this phrase that's thrown around a lot in science of mind, they say treat and move your feet. Right? So you can do the spiritual mind treatment work, you can do the mind healing, unless you take action, it doesn't mean anything. Because again, you create a new cause in spiritual mind treatment, the effect must be action. And if you have not created action, keep treating. Keep treating. Keep treating. Treat until you demonstrate, Ernest Holmes says. Treat until you demonstrate. We all have responsibility to this planet. And so in each and every one of our lives, be responsible to your place on the planet. All right. Just sometimes I have to stop and say, is there something more coming through that I have to say? Spiritual mind treatment. Is this a service that CSL charges for? Yes and no. The practitioners have been licensed. I am a practitioner before I am a minister, by the way, because my idea is that the practitioner work is where this philosophy happens. And my decision to be consciousness on demand is the most important thing in my life, much more so than being the pastor of a church. Because I could not be a pastor of a church, I could not be the spiritual director of a center, however you want to hear it, without first being consciousness on demand and living this principle in my own life. So, The reason that we will typically assign a charge to to an appointment is because of the time. That's it. What I always tell people is that money should never be an issue. If you need spiritual mind treatment and you want to see me for that, great. I will charge you $80 for the 45 to 1 hour session, and usually involves spiritual counseling as well. However, if you are in a place where you can't afford that, talk to me. Because I will never let money be a block to doing work, to doing the work of mind. I simply know that my time has value.
That goes for all practitioners.
And that goes for all practitioners. And if any practitioner ever tells you otherwise, let me know. And name names, because I will have a chat with that person. I don't think, gosh, that sounds so like, I want to know.
He knows the human pattern.
So yeah, we don't charge, the treatment itself is not what costs money, it's the time that we're taking. That's it. How does the science of mind, part of the brain, override the reptilian part of our brain? It doesn't. That is a whole class. No, but the true answer is it doesn't until you make a decision to do it. We are beings who are self-aware. We are beings who have been given this idea of volition, this great gift of choice in our lives. So you are always at choice in terms of how you express in your life. So it doesn't unless you decide to let it do so. That's the best answer I could give. Hmm? Oh. How do I release my feelings on a relationship that is being controlled by... on a relationship that is being controlled by the government. I need to do what they say. How do I release my feelings on a relationship that is being controlled by the government? I need to do what they say. I don't feel free. I feel limited or controlled. It's kind of what I just talked about. What is your relationship to the effects in your life? And ultimately the freedom comes from re-understanding your relationship to the effects in your life. Again, it's choice, it's volition. Are you going to stay in that mental place of something outside of me has power over me? Or are you going to understand that you are the power? Because that's the truth. You are the power. So what I would suggest in this case, because for me, this triggers something, my suggestion would be talk to a practitioner, because a practitioner can help with that, for sure. And ultimately, it comes down to choice. I could have chosen, personally, I could have chosen to give in and say, you know what, the majority of the voters in California have decided that I should not get married because I would probably choose to marry a man. So now I'm feeling limited and controlled by the government because it is now a government mandate. If I choose to understand that the government truly doesn't have any power over me, regardless of the circumstances I see, if I give in fully to the idea that my love is beyond the government's idea of what it should be, then I get to move past that. But it all starts in mind. It all starts in mind and it all ends in mind. But again, that's something that could certainly be worked on with a practitioner. This is the last one, by the way, because I know I've been up here a really long time. How do I just believe that all will happen as it should and have faith? How do I just believe that all will happen as it is and should, as it should, sorry. Let me read it again. Just to make sure that I'm clear on how the question is written. How do I just believe that all will happen as it should and have faith? Faith is the opposite of fear. If you live in faith, then you can step away from fear. If you have beliefs that are not working for you, the first thing to do is recognize that those beliefs exist. That's the first step. Because ultimately what you're talking about here in this question is changing your belief. And again, it's changing the belief from there is power outside of me to the belief that I am the power. So first recognize that the belief exists. Then there's more work to be done because you can see the belief, right? It's there in front of your face. Most of us can usually get to that point. Then the question is, well, okay, so I see that it's there, how do I change it? Well, what is the truth behind the belief? And when I say truth, I mean truth with a capital T. What is the spiritual idea behind it? And how do I embody that in my life? Now, there are many different ways of embodying a spiritual principle and a spiritual idea. One of them is through meditation, another is through treatment. To constantly keep at work in your own life, and when it shows up, when something shows up that seems to be in opposition to the spiritual principle, recognize it in that moment and make a new choice about it. Create a new cause in your life in that moment about it. But it takes practice, and it takes diligence, and it takes an understanding of constantly being aware of what's going on in your world and how you are relating to the world and how you are reacting to the world. Any belief can be changed. I believe that. Even the ones you don't even realize are there. Because if I didn't believe that, then I would believe that I was victim to something else. I would believe that I was victim to circumstance. And that's not the truth. Because as I know, I can change the cause and the circumstances will change. So that's where it all starts. And again, class is a great way to start working on changing your beliefs. That's why I led off with the Power of Decision and Spiritual Economics, because those are two very powerful courses that help people get to the place of really understanding that they have power to change their beliefs over money, and it's all made by deciding to do it. So, is anybody, I shouldn't ask for more questions because I'm way over, I've been talking up here for what, like 45 minutes? I thank you for your wonderful questions today, and I thank you for challenging me, because this is one of the great things about this. You challenge me to understand what's going on with you so that I can also look at it in my own life and say, am I really living this principle? Am I really upholding these ideas? And what questions have been brought forth to me that I realize I still have? So I want to say thank you all for participating today, and I trust and know that you are loved because you are all loved by me. Thank you so much.